Thank you for this opportunity, and God bless our brothers and sisters in diaspora. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we think that probably one fourth of African Americans have roots in Nigeria. And so we know that we need to know what's coming out of Nigeria, what is important. So as we identify new things, such as we mentioned that cola nut, for instance. So cola nut is a product that's represented by a lot of West African countries. But what is it? What is the name of it in Wolof, or what do you say? How do you call it in the Yoruba, or how do you say that name in Kikanga? So it may have name, the same plant may have names around the continent. So so as we identify what is important, we may find that we have more than we know that we have not lost, that we've shared. So for instance, baobab is growing in the West Indies. I did not realize that.
Yes.
Yeah, it grows in the West Indies. And also something, are you familiar with something called stinky toe?
Yep.
Okay. So
Brazil nut. Like the
what is
Brazil nut.
right? It's, pardon me?
It's like a Brazil nut.
It's hard like that on the outside, but sweet on the inside. Am I correct?
Yes.
And it has many medicinal qualities. The same thing for baobab.
We have somebody, Compton Seaforth. He's deceased now, but he did a whole encyclopedia on the medicinal herbs of the Caribbean. And I know that Cuba has also done a great deal of work on the medicinal herbs in this region. And some of them obviously also are grown in parts of West and Central Africa.
So another one of our working groups is value added. And in the value added group, we have many herbalists. Mm-hmm. And what we can possibly do is to transfer some of these products into value added. Now, value added may have an ability to travel in a different way that seeds can. Mm-hmm. But we know that our partnership with USDA, they say that are willing to help us collect seeds that are important as well for the diaspora.
You need some honey.
I do. I'm allergic to Maryland. So go ahead and continue your conversation while I go get some water.
I was to say also, we can also look on the means to raise some financial resources to support the group also.
Yes.
That's right. So we need to look for some financial support. Thank you.
Yeah, so that we can maybe also organize one convening or a meeting, if possible, here in Africa also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. And again, there are various other kinds of networks that are, as we know, are in existence. For example, when we just came back from Italy for the Slow Food International Gathering, I purposely reached out and met all kinds of folks, focus on this whole question of seeds. So we recognize that, again, that there are wonderful existing efforts going on, but we need to connect. I call it like making a quilt. We have these different pieces that we know exist, and our work is to try to sew them together. The way to counter the likes of a Monsanto and these other large agribusinesses is how well we knit together. And I want you all to know that the likes of these big seed companies and the GMOs and the Roundup and Monsanto, way back in the 1940s, here in the United States in Alabama, in this place called Anniston, Alabama, which is primarily an African American black community, the likes of Monsanto was making Agent Orange and Roundup, and they were poisoning the people, they were poisoning the water, and there was all kinds of protests and demonstrations. So just to recognize that these are not recent phenomena of these large companies, but we were able to impact some change within the work of, again, President Monsanto within this black community here in Alabama. So it's been a long fight, and now it has to do with seeds and things. But hey, we're going to win. We're going to keep battling. We're going to keep fighting, keep organizing and networking.
Jim, let me just say that, this whole movement for regenerative agriculture is picking up steam. 2 days in a row, the Financial Times has had articles about changing the patterns of growing. And so we know that there is movement in this direction. And, we have to take advantage of that movement as well. So as I listen to all of you speaking, I just think about the gangsta gardener out of LA. Growing your own food is like minting your own money. And if we teach people to grow food, I have some sweet potatoes right now, and they're sitting in my basket in the kitchen. I know I will cut off the top of those and they will go out in the garden. I see a new way. And see, these are not things all the time when we're looking for financial resources. Well, the financial resources are with us too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we have to understand that if we can help ourselves to grow our own food, and that is Eddie's, resilience gardens all over Africa in the schools. And as people start to feel better, this is really the biggest issue. As people start to feel better because they're eating better, then they are going to become the advocates for what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's so true. So
yeah.
True.
Our children, the ADHD is from all the soda pop, from all the processed food. Once you take that out of their diets, you get a whole nother attitude.
Yes.
That's right. I want to talk about this concept of seed stewards because we have recently received a grant from Princeton University to partner with Spelman University, which is an all-women's school in Atlanta, Georgia, to collect seed stories. So one of the things that was so tragic about COVID was it stole so many seniors from us and so many important stories that we did not write down. We did not collect those stories. And so we have a new project in which we are going to be working both in the U.S. and internationally and collecting stories. The story of Wangari Maathai is such an inspiration for us. But there's other people like her. And do we know them? Do we know their stories? I'm sure there's a George Washington Carver in every country. So who are the people who mean so much to the folks? So we are working with Princeton and Harvard. A piece of that project is going to focus on international stewards. We're also working with University of Botswana, Maon, to look at the farmers, the people who are the culture keepers. And they're actually looking at bringing them into the university and treating them as they are, which is cultural assets for a society and a community. So why should you always go to Europe to get a book to tell you something that maybe your great-grandmother, your grandmother on the other side of town has been doing every day? So we will be... So another thing we're going to ask you to do is to identify the culture bearers and the stewards, the farming and the ones who know, and collect those stories. Do not let them go into the grave without any attempt to collect those stories. We're also looking at industrial uses of plants for creating biomass, bioretention, and creating fuel and carbon sequestration. So we do have a group that's looking at industrial uses. We know that there's tremendous needs for energy and energy sustainability on the continent, but there is for everybody. And I just heard the report. Have you been following the story going on in Mozambique with their energy resources? I mean, that's just outrageous. So I was hoping that somebody would come into this and talk to a little bit about what we know about what's happening in Mozambique, and if there's any support we can give to our brothers and sisters there. Anybody know?
I haven't been following it.
Please look it up.
Sure.
The Boko Haram and some of the extreme groups have taken over. They have found tremendous natural gas resources in Mozambique, and they're about to be overrun by the Boko Haram and other groups of that nature, because the people are wondering, are these resources going to serve the people? You know, as in many countries, the natural resources that come out of a country do not serve the people. And so Boko Haram has been able to make headway because the government is not providing what they should for their citizens. And so I think this is a cautionary tale that natural resources, if abused, can be as much of a liability or more so than before they were discovered.
Yes.
So please follow that story. It's alarming, but if there's any way we can help our brothers and sisters in Mozambique, it would be good to at least be aware of their struggle. So I think that part of what we need to do is that we probably need to put out some type of publication that alerts each other to the major relevant stories in our community.
Right. So we're going to ask folks again to put into the chat your relevant contact information so we can kind of keep track of that. And then, as was mentioned, we have this convening coming up in October, and we hope to be able to put together kind of a Zoom technology to allow portions of that that weekend to be shared with you all in the African Caribbean group.
The other thing this working group will do is they will come up with our own working plan, our own goals and objectives and budgets. So be thinking. There's no reason to think small. We have nothing to begin with, so we might as well think big, right? But we do have each other, and we have a whole lot of wonderful people in this group. So let's go for it. So we will. I'm going to ask. Could I ask you, please, Julius, any more things that we need to fill in on this chart that you have in your notes?
I don't think I see him.
Oh, okay.
He may have left the call.
Is there any other goal that you would like us to put on this in this document, y'all? We can come back at it next week. So if you think of new things, we can add it. Okay. Did you have anything else, Roxanne, that we should add?
I don't think so. I'm just taking notes.
Okay.
Yeah, and for us, I think it's the first time we are seeing the document. So I think we shall be able to maybe contribute more.
Yes.
In the next meeting when we shall have interacted with it.
Yes.
Roxanne, were you able to collect all the emails from the chat?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we will send you notification, the calendar notice for this.